Hey, good morning everyone. Wednesday morning, the 27th of January 2021. This morning's devotional is a reading from the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 6, reading verses 6 through to verse 9, which read, "These commandments that I give you today are to be upon your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. Write them on the door frames of your houses and on your gates." God, in his great love for his creation, instructed us to teach his laws and word to the younger generation by talking to the other generations. But this remains a huge challenge for many in ministry, and millions of rands have been spent in devising youth camps, youth programs, and the like, many of which on face value seem to be excellent, but sadly they fail rather miserably. When evangelism takes place, we need to be aware that it is not about us or about our message. Rather, it is about God and God's message and the good news. Peter gives guidelines in 1 Peter chapter 3 verse 15, which reads, "But in your hearts set apart Christ as Lord. Always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have." And here's the important part of this verse. "But do this with gentleness and respect." All too often, these two qualities are always lacking: gentleness and respect. The problem that arises is that many times the speaker speaks over the heads of the audience, and so the audience misses the point. We need to remember that Jesus did not expect us to come up to him. Rather, he came down to us. And the lesson for us is that we need to come down to the level of where our audience is. Language is also often a barrier, and many ministers fail to connect with a younger or next generation audience because they do not know how to communicate with them. They do not understand the language of the culture. We can throw up our hands in frustration because the next generation doesn't communicate like we do. Or perhaps we could embrace a new, more effective form of communication. They might have something to teach us after all. Jesus did not lecture people. He loved people, and people respond more to love than to a lecture. All lectures achieve is they push people, old and young, further away from the message that you desire to communicate with them. What the next generation needs to know is that we are for them. They need to know that we love them. They will struggle, they will fail, but when they know that they are affirmed and loved, they will be compelled to get back up and keep moving. They will run toward the cross and not away from it. When the next generation constantly hears what they did wrong, what message are you sending to them? I know what message was sent to me. You better not mess up or God will be mad at you. Or unless you do things the right way, you aren't accepted around here. We need to be obedient to the word that God plants in our hearts, and not the word which we think that God wants us to tell others. Is the listener fully engaged with the message, or are we merely ticking a block in order to get rid of some Bible basher? My dear friends, let us love with the love of the Lord. Let us see him in others, and remember that it requires a whole lot of persistence to proclaim the good news. It is not something that we speak or something that we just tick blocks and move on with life. Let us also not discriminate with the sharing of the good news. Let us be obedient to God, that his will be done. With that rather lengthy message, my prayer is, may the Lord be with you, may he bless you, may he cause his face to shine upon you and be with you always. Goodbye.